The first time he flirted with me, I thought it was a mistake. The second time, I was sure he was just being cocky. By the third time, I realized God help met his man wasn't going to stop. And worse, I didn't want him to. It all started on an unbearably hot afternoon in June. The kind of day when the air in New Jersey suburbs feels like it's wrapped in plastic and every breath tastes faintly of asphalt. I was on my porch with a lukewarm iced coffee, scrolling through my phone, when the U-Haul pulled up next door. A fresh start for someone, I thought. But I didn't expect that someone to be the storm that would knock me off my feet. The door of the truck slammed open, and there he was, tall, broad shoulders catching the sun, sweat darkening his gray t-shirt in ways that were unfair. He had that kind of messy dark hair you knew he hadn't styled but somehow made him look like he belonged in a Calvin Klein ad. And his smile, well, I didn't know it yet, but that smile was about to dismantle me piece by piece. "Hey, neighbor," he called, shading his eyes with his hand. "You gonna help me, or are you just planning to watch while I break my back?" I blinked, half offended, half amused. Who the hell did this guy think he was? Talking to me like we'd been friends for years. Still, my legs carried me down the steps before my brain had even decided. "I don't even know your name," I shot back. "And you're already giving me orders." He grinned, and I swear the temperature rose another 5 degrees. "Caleb," he said, extending a hand as if this was a business deal and not some bizarre meet-cute. "And you?" "Ethan," I muttered, shaking his hand. His grip was warm, firm, just long enough to feel deliberate. "Great," Caleb said. "Now that we're officially acquainted, grab that box, Ethan." And that was how it began, the summer I got tangled in someone else's orbit. The summer my life started burning a little brighter, a little hotter, a little more dangerously. By the end of that first week, I knew 3 things about Caleb. He was from Chicago, and apparently everyone there was born with a natural ability to charm. He was going to medical school in the fall, but until then he was taking it easy, which meant jogging shirtless at ungodly hours and cooking elaborate meals that perfumed the entire block. He liked to flirt. With me. Constantly. I wasn't naive. I'd had my share of boyfriends. Flings. Messy breakups that left me with boxes of old hoodies I still hadn't thrown out. But something about Caleb's attention felt different. It wasn't just casual banter. He looked at me like he was genuinely interested. Like every sarcastic reply I gave him only made him want to push further. Like the night he knocked on my door with 2 beers in hand, claiming his stove had broken so he needed company while his pasta finished in the oven. "Pretty sure you just wanted to see me," I said, opening the door wider. "You caught me." He replied with a grin that was both shameless and sweet. Or the morning I left for work in a wrinkled button-up. Hair still damp. Coffee spilling dangerously close to the rim of my travel mug. Caleb leaned over the fence and said, "You look good flustered, Ethan. Makes me wonder what else gets you like that." I almost choked on my coffee. This was the rhythm we fell into, him pushing, me pretending not to pull back in. A dance we hadn't rehearsed but somehow knew every step. And with each passing day, the space between us grew thinner, the tension thicker, until I started wondering not if something would happen, but when. One night, late July, the air was heavy with the scent of cut grass and barbecue smoke drifting from a block away. I was lying on my porch swing, scrolling half-heartedly, when Caleb appeared with that lopsided grin and 2 slices of watermelon. "You always come bearing gifts," I teased as he sat beside me, his knee brushing mine. "Only for you," he replied, and for once his tone wasn't playful. It was quiet, almost serious, and it froze me in place. I looked at him then, not just the strong jawline or the easy smile, but the way his eyes softened when they met mine, like he was searching for permission. And God, A part of me wanted to give it. But there was also the part of me that remembered the bruises of past heartbreaks. The hollow nights spent wondering why I wasn't enough. I couldn't afford another storm. You really don't quit, do you? I asked, my voice light, though my chest felt like it was caving in. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. Not when it comes to you. And that was the moment I realized I was already in too deep. The problem with falling for someone like Caleb is that it didn't feel like falling. It felt like being pulled. Like gravity had chosen him as my center and I was powerless to resist. We spent that summer entangled in late-night conversations. Laughter spilling out onto quiet streets. Accidental touches that didn't feel so accidental anymore. Yet beneath the surface, there was always this shadow, a question neither of us wanted to ask. What happens when summer ends? Because Caleb was leaving. Chicago was home. Med school was calling. And I was just the boy next door who happened to catch his attention for a season. And yet, the way he looked at me sometimes like I wasn't just a passing moment made me wonder if maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. The first crack in my defenses came on a rainy Friday evening. I'd just gotten back from work, soaked through because my umbrella had flipped inside out in the storm. When there was a knock at the door, I opened it to find Caleb standing there, holding a steaming takeout bag in one hand and an umbrella in the other, looking infuriatingly dry and infuriatingly handsome. You look like a drowned rat, he said with a smirk. Figured you could use dinner. Thanks for the compliment, I muttered, stepping aside to let him in. Water dripped from my hair onto the hardwood floor, leaving a trail behind me. He kicked off his shoes and followed, setting the bag on the kitchen counter. I ordered Thai. Spicy. Hope that's okay. You're ridiculous, I said, though my chest warmed in a way the food wouldn't. We ate sitting cross-legged on the floor because neither of us felt like setting the table. The rain pounded against the windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. And somewhere between bites of pad thai and laughter at some dumb joke he made, I realized how easy it was to forget the storm outside and the bigger one inside my chest. At one point, he reached over to wipe a drop of sauce from my lip with his thumb. My breath caught. My pulse stuttered. And he must have seen it because his expression shifted. Softened. Ethan, he said quietly, my name breaking the air between us like glass. And I panicked. I stood up too quickly, muttering something about grabbing another beer, retreating to the kitchen like it was a bunker. My hands shook as I opened the fridge. I didn't know if I was more afraid of him kissing me or of him not trying at all. When I came back, he didn't push. He just smiled, easy and gentle, like he understood my silence. Maybe he did. The truth is, I was terrified. Not of Caleb, never of him, but of the way he made me feel. Like I was enough. Like I was wanted without needing to perform. Without needing to be perfect or guarded. My last boyfriend, Alex, had been the kind of love that burned too hot and too fast, leaving me ash in the aftermath. He'd promised me permanence, whispered about futures, only to pack up and leave when the weight of reality pressed in. I told myself I'd never fall like that again. But then came Caleb, with his relentless smile and his steady presence, dismantling all my carefully built walls brick by brick. By mid-August, the entire neighborhood had caught on. Mrs. Thompson, the widow across the street, asked me one morning if Caleb and I were official yet. The mailman raised an eyebrow when Caleb handed me a coffee over the fence like it was our daily ritual. Even my mom, during a phone call, asked, "So who's the guy you keep mentioning without realizing you're mentioning him?" I denied it every time. We're just friends, I'd say, the words sour in my mouth. But late at night, when Caleb sat next to me on the porch swing and our thighs pressed together, I couldn't lie to myself. I wanted him. God, I wanted him. The breaking point came at the end of summer. At a block party the neighbors threw every year. There were paper lanterns strung between houses, barbecue smoke curling through the air, kids running with sparklers like it was the 4th of July all over again. Caleb and I played cornhole with a couple of neighbors, drank cheap beer from plastic cups, laughed until my stomach hurt. But later, when the crowd thinned and the night grew heavy with crickets and fading chatter, he pulled me aside behind the garage. The lanterns cast a soft glow across his face, shadows dancing in his eyes. "I can't keep doing this," he said, voice low, urgent. My heart plummeted. "Doing what?" "This dance," he said, gesturing between us. "The flirting, the almost, the pretending we're just neighbors when we both know it's more than that." I swallowed hard. "Caleb, no. Listen." He cut in, stepping closer. "I know you're scared. I get it. But I'm not Alex. I'm not going to disappear when it gets hard. I'm here. And if you want me, even just a little, then you need to stop running." The world tilted, my breath catching on his words. He was too close, too honest, too much. "Say something, Ethan," he whispered, desperation bleeding through. I wanted to. God, I wanted to tell him everything that I thought about him every night, that I craved his touch, that he scared me in the best and worst ways. But the words tangled in my throat, strangled by fear. So I didn't say anything. And that silence broke him. His jaw tightened, his eyes shuddered, and he stepped back like I'd struck him. "Right?" he said flatly. "Got it." Then he walked away, leaving me in the shadows with nothing but the echo of what I couldn't say. The days after that were unbearable. Caleb still waved when we passed, still smiled politely, but the warmth was gone. The teasing, the effortless closeness, it all evaporated. And I hated myself for it. I told myself it was better this way, that distance would keep me safe, that if I let him in, I'd only end up broken again. But lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, all I felt was emptiness. One evening, I saw him loading boxes back into the same U-Haul he'd arrived with. My chest constricted so tight I thought I'd suffocate. He was leaving. Of course he was. Why would he stay for someone too cowardly to even admit what he wanted? I almost let him go. Almost. But then he turned, wiping sweat from his brow, and our eyes met across the driveway. There was no grin this time, no spark, just resignation. And in that moment, the thought of him driving away off, never hearing his laugh again, never feeling his knee brush mine, never seeing that smile aimed at me was unbearable. "Caleb," I called, my voice cracking. He froze, back still turned. I stumbled forward, heart hammering, throat dry. "Wait, please." Slowly, he faced me, guarded, wary. "What?" "I'm sorry," I said, the words rushing out like floodwater. "I'm sorry I froze. I'm sorry I didn't say what I should have. I was scared. Okay. Scared of losing you before I even had you. Scared of wanting too much." His expression flickered, but he didn't move closer. "And now?" I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body trembling. "Now I know I'd rather take the risk than let you go." The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then, slowly, his lips curved not into the cocky grin I'd first fallen for, but something softer, hopeful. "Say it, Ethan," he said. "Say what you want." I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough to finally let go. "I want you," I whispered. "Only you." For a moment, he just stared at me, eyes searching mine like he needed to be sure. And then he closed the distance, his mouth on mine in a kiss that was everything we'd been holding back, messy, desperate, Electric. It wasn't perfect. My hands shook. Our teeth clashed. And I might have let out a sound halfway between a sob and a laugh. But it was real. God, it was real. When we finally broke apart, breathless and tangled, he rested his forehead against mine. Took you long enough, he murmured, and I laughed through the tears burning my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. The kiss should have been the end of the story. The neat bow tied on top of a messy summer. Boy meets boy. Boy resists. Boy gives in. Happily ever after. But reality doesn't work that way. Reality has bills and calendars and deadlines that don't care how many sparks fly when two people finally stop pretending. The night after we kissed, Caleb didn't leave. The U-Haul stayed parked in his driveway, half-packed. Instead, he knocked on my door carrying nothing but a sheepish grin and 2 cups of coffee. I figured, he said, holding them up like a peace offering. If I'm not leaving yet, we should probably talk about what the hell this is. I let him in, heart doing a nervous somersault. We sat on my couch, close but not quite touching, like the kiss was a fragile secret we could break if we moved too fast. So, I said, trying to sound casual while my pulse raced. What is this? He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. That's what I'm asking you. Because I'm all in. Ethan, I don't want to half do this. But I need to know if you're in it too. I stared at him, the weight of his words pressing down on me. All in. 2 simple words. But they carried everything: commitment, risk, trust. The very things I'd been running from. But when I looked at him, really looked, I realized something. The fear was still there. Yes. But so was something bigger. Hope. I'm in. I said softly. I don't know what the future looks like, but I want to try. With you. His relief was visible, his whole body loosening. And then he smiled, that slow, devastating smile of his. Good. Because I was planning to make you mine either way. I rolled my eyes, but the heat creeping into my cheeks betrayed me. The weeks that followed felt stolen, like we were living on borrowed time. Every morning, Caleb brought me coffee, sometimes with ridiculous foam art he'd YouTubed how to make. Sometimes with just a scrawled note on the cup, "You look good today." Every evening, we found excuses to be together. Whether it was cooking dinner, watching terrible reality TV, or lying out on the grass counting constellations neither of us actually knew the names of. It was bliss, in its imperfect way. And yet, the closer September crept, the louder the clock ticked in my head. One night, lying in my bed with Caleb's arm draped lazily over my waist, I whispered into the dark, "What happens when you go?" He stirred, tightening his hold on me. "We figure it out. Long distance doesn't usually work." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But we're not most people. I don't want this to be just a summer fling. Ethan, do you?" I turned to face him, my heart twisting. "No," I whispered. "I don't." "Then we make it work," he said firmly, like it was that simple. And for a moment, I let myself believe it could be. But reality, as always, has sharp edges. The week before his move, Caleb's mom flew in from Chicago to help him finish packing. She was warm, talkative, and terrifyingly perceptive. The first time she saw me, standing awkwardly on the porch while Caleb hoisted a box into the truck, she gave me a once-over that felt like an X-ray. "And you are?" she asked, eyebrow arched. Ethan," I stammered. "Neighbor." "Neighbor," she repeated, lips twitching like she knew there was more. Caleb swooped in, draping an arm casually around my shoulders. "Mom, this is Ethan. He's been helping me out. Couldn't have survived moving in without him." I stiffened at the contact, at the implication, but his mom just smiled knowingly. Well, Ethan, thank you for looking out for my son. The whole time she was in town, I kept my distance, afraid of what she'd see if she looked too closely, afraid of what I'd have to admit if she asked the right question. Caleb noticed, of course. One night, after she'd gone to bed, he cornered me in my kitchen. "You're avoiding me," he said flatly. "I'm not. You are," he pressed. "Is this about my mom?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know what we are to you, to her, to anyone, and I don't know if I can handle being a secret." His expression softened. He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. "You're not a secret, Ethan. You're the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. I just need time to tell her, to tell everyone. Can you give me that?" I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that his words would hold when distance stretched between us. So I nodded, and when he kissed me, slow and tender, I let myself forget the doubt gnawing at me. The night before he left, we didn't sleep. We lay tangled in sheets, whispering promises neither of us knew how to keep. "I'll call you every day," he murmured against my skin. "I'll come visit," I replied, clinging to him like I could stop the sunrise. "We'll make this work, Ethan. I swear." But dawn came anyway, cruel and unrelenting. I stood in his driveway as he loaded the last box into the U-Haul, my chest hollow. He hugged me tight, kissed me like it was both a beginning and an ending, and then he was gone. The street felt unbearably empty without him. At first, we did make it work. The calls came daily, sometimes quick check-ins between classes, sometimes long, meandering conversations that stretched past midnight. He sent me photos of his new apartment, of the view from his window, of the coffee shop he'd already made his second home. I sent him dumb memes, snapshots of my dog, the occasional selfie that made him groan about how much he missed me. It was good. It was enough. Until it wasn't. Because slowly, inevitably, the gaps began to grow. One day he missed a call because of a late lab. Then 2. Then 3. Texts went unanswered for hours, sometimes days. When we did talk, he sounded distracted, exhausted. "I'm sorry," he said one night, voice thick with fatigue. "Med school is killing me. I barely have time to breathe." "I get it," I said, though my chest ached. "Really, I do." But what I didn't say was that I missed him so much it felt like a physical wound. That I lay awake at night staring at my phone, hoping it would light up with his name. That every silence between us felt wider, heavier, harder to bridge. The breaking point came in October. I'd had a rough day at work. My boss had ripped apart a presentation I'd spent weeks on. Traffic had been hell, and the power went out just as I got home. Sitting in the dark, I called Caleb, desperate just to hear his voice. He didn't answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. Hours later, he finally called back. His tone was rushed, apologetic, but distant. "Sorry, Ethan. I was studying with some classmates. Lost track of time." "Studying," I repeated, my voice sharp. "Yes, studying," he said, irritation creeping in. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I snapped, though it meant everything. It meant I wasn't there. It meant someone else was. It meant I wasn't enough to keep his attention anymore. "Ethan," he sighed, "don't do this. Don't turn this into something it's not." But the line between what it was and what it wasn't had blurred so much. I couldn't tell anymore. My voice cracked. "I just miss you." There was silence on the other end, heavy and suffocating. Then, quietly, "I miss you too. More than you know." But it didn't fix the distance. It didn't fix the ache. That night, after we hung up, I sat in the dark and wondered if love was ever enough. Because I loved him. I did. But love couldn't erase miles. Couldn't change the fact that our lives were spinning in different directions. And the thought of losing him, the thought of this ending in silence instead of fire was unbearable. And yet, I didn't know if I had the strength to hold on. By November, I started to notice the little things. The way Caleb's calls often came when he was walking between classes. His voice distracted as he waved at friends in the background. The way he sometimes forgot the details I told him the day before what project I was working on. Which movie I'd gone to see with coworkers. The way he never said, "I love you" first anymore. It wasn't that he didn't care. I knew he did. But med school was swallowing him whole. And I was too far away to fight for space in his world. One night, after we'd only exchanged a handful of texts all day, I finally broke. "Do you still want this?" I asked when he picked up, my voice sharper than I intended. There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" "This," I said, pacing my darkened living room. "Us. Because I feel like I'm just clinging to something that's slipping through my fingers." He groaned, the sound weary. "Ethan, I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy for a fight right now." "I'm not trying to fight," I insisted, though my chest burned. "I just need to know if I'm the only one holding on." "You're not," he said quickly. "You're not. Okay. I'm here. I want this. But you have to give me some grace. I'm drowning in work. And I can't always be the boyfriend who's there at your beck and call." The word stung. "That's not what I'm asking for." "Then what are you asking for?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did. But I was too afraid to say it. I wanted more than phone calls and texts. I wanted him here, beside me, where I could touch him and know he was real. But wanting that felt selfish. Impossible. So instead, I said nothing. And the silence between us grew louder. December came. And with it, the holidays. Caleb couldn't make it back too many exams. Too much pressure. I told him I understood. And part of me did. But watching families gather, couples walking hand in hand under Christmas lights, left me hollow. On Christmas Eve, I called him from my parents' porch, the cold biting at my fingers. He answered, his voice bright but rushed. "Hey, Merry Christmas," he said. "Yeah," I replied, my tone flat. "Merry Christmas." I could hear laughter in the background, voices overlapping. "Where are you?" I asked. "Friend's place," he said casually. "Some classmates invited me over since I couldn't fly home. Figured it was better than being alone." Pang shot through me, sharp and unrelenting. He wasn't alone. He had people. He had a life I wasn't part of. "I should let you go," I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. "Sounds like you're busy." "Ethan, it's fine," I cut in. "Really. Have fun." And before he could say more, I hung up. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled laughter of my family downstairs, wondering if love was enough to bridge this chasm. January brought snow, silence, and doubt. We still talked, but it was different now. Shorter, shallower. Like both of us were afraid to dig too deep for fear of what we might find. I threw myself into work, into gym sessions and late nights, anything to distract from the ache of missing him. And then, one night, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw it, a photo someone had tagged him in. Caleb, sitting at a crowded table with his classmates. He was smiling, head tilted toward a girl beside him who was laughing at something he'd said. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. It was innocent. Probably nothing. But my stomach twisted anyway. I didn't confront him right away. I told myself I was being irrational, insecure. But the image lodged itself in my brain, festering. By the time we spoke the next night, I couldn't hold it in. So, I said, trying to sound casual, "Who's the girl in that photo?" There was a pause. "What photo?" "The one on Instagram. You at a table. She's sitting next to you." He sighed, the sound laced with frustration. "Ethan, seriously, that's just Jenna, a classmate. We were studying. Someone snapped a picture. That's all." Her hand was on your arm. I pressed. "Are you kidding me right now?" He snapped. "You think I'm cheating on you because of a hand on my arm?" I don't know what to think. I exploded. "I'm here, miles away, with nothing but scraps of your time. And then I see that. What am I supposed to feel?" "You're supposed to trust me," he said, his voice hard. "If you can't, then what are we even doing?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, he muttered, "I need to go. We'll talk later." And just like that, the line went dead. For the first time since he left, I wondered if this was the beginning of the end. The following week was torture. Minimal texts. No calls. Every vibration of my phone sent my heart racing, only to be disappointed again and again. Finally, one Saturday night, he called. His voice was weary but determined. "We need to talk," he said. My chest tightened. "That sounds ominous." "I don't want to lose you, Ethan," he said. "But I also can't keep doing this constant fighting. The mistrust. I know it's hard. I know the distance sucks. But if we're going to make it, we both have to believe in it. Otherwise," he didn't finish the sentence. But he didn't need to. "Otherwise, we'd fall apart." Tears burned my eyes. "I don't want to lose you either." "Then trust me," he pleaded. "Please. I'm not perfect. I'll mess up. But I'm yours. Always yours." And maybe it was naive. Maybe it was reckless. But I believed him. Because the alternative, letting him go, was too painful to bear. By February, we'd found a rhythm again. Less perfect than summer. More fragile. But real. I booked a flight to Chicago for spring break. And the countdown became my lifeline. When I finally stepped off that plane and saw him waiting at the gate, holding a cardboard sign that said "Hot Neighbor Boy," I laughed so hard I cried. He swept me into his arms, spinning me like we were in a rom-com. And for the first time in months, I felt whole again. The week we spent together in Chicago was everything I dreamed of and more. Long walks by the lake, late nights tangled in his bed, whispered confessions in the dark. For a little while, the distance didn't matter. For a little while, it was just us again. But even in the sweetness, the shadow lingered. Because when I boarded that return flight, I knew we'd only be starting the cycle all over again. And as I watched him wave from the terminal, my heart cracked with the question I was too afraid to ask. How many times could love survive the leaving? The night stretched into hours of conversation. And somewhere in the middle of the laughter, I realized I didn't want it to end. Every story he told, every way his eyes lit up, made me want to lean in closer. It was dangerous. The way he pulled me in without even trying. By the time I glanced at the clock, it was nearly 2 a.m. The city outside had quieted down, street lamps glowing against the half-empty sidewalks. But my apartment still hummed with the echo of his voice. "You should probably get some sleep," Ryan said, though he looked like he had no intention of leaving. "Yeah, probably," I replied. But neither of us moved. We sat there, the silence thick with something unspoken. I felt my pulse quicken, my throat dry. If I leaned forward just an inch, if he did the same, we'd be past a line I wasn't sure I could uncross. And then he did lean in. Not much, just a tilt, but enough that the air between us turned electric. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might shake the walls. I froze, waiting, testing fate. His voice broke the moment. I should not go. He pulled back, smiling softly, like he didn't want to but knew he had to. Disappointment settled into my chest. But I nodded. Yeah. Okay. At the door, he paused. Thanks for tonight, Alex. You're easy to talk to. That shouldn't have felt as intimate as it did. But it did. And when the door clicked shut behind him, I leaned my forehead against it, wondering what the hell I'd just gotten myself into. The next few days blurred with the same rhythm: morning coffee, dragging myself to work, coming home to the faint sound of Ryan's music through the walls. We texted, sometimes short, casual things that didn't mean much on the surface but somehow made my day lighter. Then Friday came. I got home late, exhausted from a brutal day at the office. And the second I walked into my apartment, there was a knock at the door. Ryan stood there, holding a six-pack. Movie night? He asked, almost sheepishly. I wanted to say no. I needed sleep. But the word that came out was, yes. This time, he didn't bother with the couch. He sat on the floor, back against the edge, legs stretched out, so close our knees almost touched. I slid down next to him, beer in hand, the glow of the TV painting shadows on his face. Halfway through the movie, I realized I hadn't been paying attention for at least 20 minutes. I was too busy watching him laugh at the stupid jokes, too caught up in the way his arm brushed mine every so often, sending sparks through my skin. At one point, he looked at me instead of the screen. Just looked. Long enough that I had to force myself not to squirm. You know what's funny? He said softly. What? I think I like this movie better just because you're watching it with me. I laughed, but my chest tightened. You're ridiculous. Maybe. He didn't look away. But it's true. There it was again, that line. The one I wasn't sure I could let him cross. The one I wasn't sure I could stop myself from crossing either. And this time, neither of us pulled back. His lips brushed mine before I even realized what was happening. Gentle, tentative, like he was asking a question. I answered without thinking, pressing closer, heat flooding through me. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't chaos. It was soft and slow. The kind of kiss that feels like it's been waiting forever to happen. When we finally pulled apart, I stared at him, breathless. Ryan. Yeah. His voice was low, almost nervous. I shook my head, unable to finish. Complicated. He offered. I laughed, a shaky sound. That's one word for it. But he didn't let go of my hand. And I didn't make him. The following weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Coffee runs that turned into long walks. Late-night conversations that turned into touches. Into kisses. Into the kind of closeness I hadn't let myself feel in years. It was terrifying. And it was addictive. I caught myself smiling at my desk during work, thinking about the way he'd looked at me that morning. I caught myself waiting for his text, heart leaping every time my phone buzzed. But reality has a cruel way of cutting through fantasy. One evening, I was leaving the office when I spotted someone unexpected waiting outside. Jamie. She leaned against the railing, arms crossed, eyes sharp. We need to talk. The last time we'd spoken, it had ended in a fight. I hadn't expected to see her again so soon, let alone like this. What are you doing here? I asked warily. She didn't waste time. I know about him. My stomach dropped. About who? Don't play dumb. Alex. The neighbor. Ryan. I know. Her voice was laced with accusation, and suddenly I felt like a kid caught sneaking out past curfew. I don't know what you think you know. I saw you. She cut in. Last week. In your car. You kissed him. The world tilted. I hadn't even realized she'd been around. My mind raced, trying to piece together an explanation, an excuse, anything. Jamie, don't. Her eyes softened, just barely. I don't care that he's a guy. I care that you didn't tell me. I care that you hid it, like you were ashamed. Shame. The word hit harder than I wanted to admit. I'm not ashamed, I said, though my voice wavered. I just thought I didn't know how to explain it. To you. To anyone. It's new. It's confusing. Does he make you happy? She asked. After a long silence. The answer came out before I could stop it. Yes. Her expression shifted. The edge of anger giving way to something else, resignation. Maybe. Then maybe that's all that matters. I stood there, stunned, as she walked away. But her words stuck with me, echoing in my chest long after she disappeared down the street. That night, I told Ryan everything. We sat on the fire escape outside his apartment, city lights flickering in the distance. I told him about Jamie, about the fear gnawing at me, about the weight of hiding who I was. He listened, quiet and steady, his hand covering mine. You don't have to figure it all out right now, he said finally. You don't have to have the answers. You just have to be honest with yourself. With me. That's enough. And for the first time, I believed him. But happiness, I learned quickly, doesn't come without cost. Because not everyone was as understanding as Jamie. And when the whispers started at work, among neighbors, in the small but loud ways people judge what they don't understand, I had to decide whether I was strong enough to hold on. Strong enough to choose him, even if it meant choosing myself. 2. The weeks that followed were the hardest I'd lived through in years. It wasn't Ryan's fault. Not directly. It was the world pressing in on us, neighbors whispering, coworkers raising eyebrows, the quiet but sharp edge of judgment that followed me into every room. I had been invisible before. Now I felt exposed, like someone had peeled off my skin and left me raw. And I hated myself for how much it got to me. Ryan never asked me to be different. Never once pushed me beyond what I could handle. But I could see the way it hurt him every time I pulled my hand away in public. Every time I introduced him vaguely as a friend. Every time I faltered when he needed me steady. One night, it all broke. We were at his place, sitting across from each other at the tiny kitchen table. An untouched dinner between us. The silence had stretched too long, too heavy. He finally said it. Alex, I can't keep doing this. The words landed like a fist in my stomach. Doing what? This. He gestured between us, frustration flashing in his eyes. Loving you in the dark. Pretending we're nothing when I know we're everything. It's killing me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, I didn't know how to defend myself. Didn't know how to explain the fear. The weight of years spent hiding who I was even from myself. I need you to be sure about me, Ryan said, softer now, almost pleading. I can't be your secret forever. My throat closed. I'm not ready, I whispered, hating myself. He nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting it. But the disappointment in his eyes gutted me. Then maybe, he said, voice breaking, we should stop. The silence after was worse than shouting, worse than tears. It was final. When I left that night, felt like part of me stayed behind. The days after were a blur. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Except the walls of my apartment felt colder now. The music through the wall no longer there to keep me company. Ryan had stopped playing. Or maybe I had stopped listening. I thought about him constantly. The way he smiled with his whole face. The warmth of his hand in mine. The soft weight of his head on my shoulder. And every time I thought about it, I hated myself more for letting fear steal it away. Then, one evening, I came home to find a note slipped under my door. It was short. His handwriting. Moving back to Boston. Thought I'd say goodbye. But maybe it's easier this way. Take care of yourself. Alex. You deserve to be happy. I read it once. Twice. 10 times. My hands shook so badly I almost tore the paper. Moving. Gone. No chance for another kiss. Another late-night talk. Another morning where his laughter made the day worth waking up for. That was the moment I broke. I didn't think. Didn't plan. I just ran. Out the door. Down the stairs. Across the street to his building. I banged on his door like my life depended on it because maybe it did. When he opened it, suitcase half-packed behind him, I didn't give him the chance to speak. I'm sorry. I blurted. I'm so sorry. I was scared. Ryan. Not of you. Of me. Of what it meant to admit that you're the one thing I can't live without. His face was unreadable. Pain and hope tangled together. Alex. No. I said, stepping closer. Desperate. I can't lose you. I don't care what people think. I don't care about the whispers or the looks or the fear. Care about you. Only you. For a long, agonizing moment, he just stared at me. Then, slowly, his shoulders dropped, and something in his eyes softened. You mean that? He asked quietly. Yes, I said, voice shaking. God. Yes. I love you. The words tasted foreign and inevitable at once, like they'd been waiting my whole life to finally be said. And then his hands were on my face, his lips on mine, and the world fell away. We didn't fix everything overnight. Love doesn't erase fear, doesn't make the world kinder. There were still looks, still whispers, still moments where I flinched out of habit. But Ryan held my hand tighter every time. And little by little, I stopped pulling away. The first time we kissed in public. On a crowded street corner in the middle of Manhattan. My heart hammered like it was going to burst out of my chest. But Ryan just smiled against my lips. Steady and proud. And for once, I didn't care who saw. Because he was mine. And I was his. Months later, on a golden September afternoon, we sat together on the fire escape, legs tangled, watching the city hum below us. Ryan leaned his head against my shoulder, warm and familiar. You ever think about how it all started? He asked, lazy smile tugging at his lips. I chuckled. Yeah, some cocky guy moving in next door, flirting with me like it was his job. He grinned. Worked, didn't it? I kissed the top of his head. Yeah, it did. Silence settled over us. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Full. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, we'd face it together. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.